Very good afternoon. Namaskar. Welcome to all to the event of book review. On this review, we decided to review the book The Philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma. The editor of the book is Professor Harischandra Sahoo, researcher, Bhima Bhoi researcher KISS DU. Now I request Professor Harish sir to give introduction about the book. Professor Harish sir.
This book, The Philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma, is a compilation of articles by renowned scholars in philosophy, history, sociology, and the different aspects. We cover the different aspects of Bhima Bhoi, and I think there are four basic aspects relating to the literature of Bhima Bhoi, what is being written by Bhima Bhoi, and criticism on it, and review on it. The second one is a historical approach where we find how it started, how Mahima Dharma has its own beginning, and how it reached the nook and corner of Orissa, and now a culmination point. It has also a philosophical aspect where we find the metaphysics, ethics, epistemology, everything is interconnected in the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi. And the last one is a sociological aspect, because this Dharma, Mahima Dharma, what we call, is based on the social aspect, because what is the condition of the people by that time, why people were interested for Mahima Dharma, all these things have been elaborated by veteran scholars of Mahima philosophy, and they discuss the concept of humanism, they discuss the concept of Guru Tattva, they discuss the nature of the reality or Sunya Purusa, they discuss the nature of Panchasakha, from whom we expect Bhima Bhoi has received a lot of materials. And this philosophy of Bhima Bhoi is now spreading everywhere. It has been decided by the UGC that this should be put into the curriculum of the students in undergraduate and PG level. And this book, entitled The Philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma, will be a very good guide for the students. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Chittaranjan Bhoi to comment upon it.
Very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I welcome all the viewers to this book review session. In fact, I extend my gratitude to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to review the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma. Well, we have been experiencing it all, the horrors and brutality of Russia-Ukraine war, censorship, man's moral degradation, and deceitful lifestyle. In this crucial juncture, reading and practicing Bhima Bhoi is quite relevant. Therefore, I owe allegiance to the organizers for conducting such event and making it public in YouTube. Since I have reviewed this book, The Philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma, which has been edited by Dr. Harischandra Behera, Harischandra Sahoo, and he has very meticulously edited this volume, and he has stated, he has taken 11 important scholars, those who have discussed different facets of Bhima Bhoi's life and philosophy. Well, having said that, while reviewing this book, I should say a few words about the book and Mahima Dharma. Well, the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma is a collection of scholarly papers by eminent scholars who have attempted to unravel the metaphysics, ethics, socio-political philosophy, and religion of the saint poet Bhima Bhoi. And this book purports to establish the concept, metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. Well, though Bhima Bhoi was not an academic philosopher, his vision and mission were to express the spiritual way of life in the language of the mass so that common can understand the theory which can be easily practiced in their day-to-day life. Indeed, Bhima Bhoi believed that life is one integrated whole which can be compartmentalized into epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics. Each aspect of life is originally related to the other aspects of life. And this noble book, this noble work, is an attempt to reveal the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma. This too is an endeavor to incorporate different concepts of Bhima Bhoi and the papers which appear to be enigmatic, and our readers have failed to understand certain critical concepts of which are there in this book. Well, Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, deemed to be university, Kish, and the publishing house of Kish has published this volume in 2020. And Professor Harischandra Sahoo, Professor Bhima Bhoi Research Chair, is deemed to be university, and through the scholar Bhima Bhoi has edited this book. I mean, he is also the scholar Bhima Bhoi who has edited the book with care and concern. This volume has 11 well-written articles that depict various facets of Bhima Bhoi's life and philosophy. This book will undoubtedly get readers' approbation, and it will also be an invaluable document for the researchers for furtherance of their studies. Let me tell you something about the articles of each contributor. So let me start with Dr. Dhaneshwar Sahoo, who is an eminent scholar of Bhima Bhoi, who in his article, Bhima Bhoi's Poetry and Religion, tries to discuss the relation between philosophy and poetry and varied features of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma. He too highlights the triumph of emotional overflow over logical reasoning in the poems of Bhima Bhoi. He has described Bhima Bhoi as a great visionary moved by human suffering and misery of human existence. Another great scholar of Bhima Bhoi, whose article is also placed in this book, and he is none other than A.C. Panigrahi. S.C. Panigrahi is a noted scholar of Bhima Bhoi, and in his article, Sri Panigrahi tells the readers and delineates the concepts of Bhima Bhoi, the complex tattvas like Sunya Purusa, Pinda Brahmanda Tattva, Srushti Tattva, doctrine of karma, and Guru Tattva have been lucidly explained by Sri Panigrahi in his article. These tattvas are little complex to understand on the part of the common readers, but he has very lucidly explained, very simply explained in his article. Therefore, Sri Panigrahi deserves lots of thanks, who has attempted to simplify the concepts of Bhima Bhoi. The third article in the book is very thought-provoking and critical, and this article has been contributed by Professor G.P. Das. Professor G.P. Das, an erudite scholar, and in his article Mahima Dharma, a revolutionary religious movement with emphatic concern for the suffering beings, attempts to justify that the works of Bhima Bhoi have revolutionary impact because they provide an ethical worldview. He too reiterates the idea of Bhima Bhoi's spiritual reawakening. So it's a worth reading article. I must suggest my viewers and the readers to go through the book and go through Professor G.P. Das's book, which is very, very interesting, insightful, and informative. Another article we find in this book, which is also invaluable, and this is contributed by Dr. Vinodini Das. Dr. Das, in her article Mahima Dharma and the Marginalia, provides a historical background of the Mahima cult. She advocates that Mahima Dharma is a product, a reform movement in 19th century in Odisha, which can be traced back to the growing discontent of Marginalia, mostly the untouchables, against the prevailing socio-religious system and dominance of upper caste people in the society. Even though it is prevailing today after in the intervention of state government and the central government through different schemes, yet we find certain sections of people are neglected and marginalized. But during those days, in 19th century, Bhima Bhoi, being the forerunner, championed the cause of the marginalized, and he was very much concerned for the marginalized people. And in his poems, we find that he has very clearly stated the sufferings of the weaker section people of our society, and his heart always throbbed and beat for those kind of people. And he has mentioned everything, that suffering, their plights and predicaments, sorrows and sufferings, trials and tribulations in his poems. So all these things are stated by Dr. Vinodini Das in an article, which is also a very worth reading article. Well then, Professor Panindu Dev, who is another great scholar of Bhima Bhoi, in her article entitled Mahima Dharma, a protest movement against dominant socio-political religious orders by the marginalized group of Odisha, is a very worth reading article, and this article deals with the plights and predicaments. As I said a minute back, this article also states the impediments of the weaker section people or untouchables or subalterns in our society, and the care and concern of Bhima Bhoi for this neglected section has also been highlighted in her article. Well then, Professor D.M. Praharaj, who is equally competent scholar, and his article is Vedantic Tradition of India and the Mahima Cult, which is a very good article. And this article lays emphasis on the Vedantic tradition, and it also states the different concepts like self, Maya, and Sunya. These are very difficult concepts. It's very difficult to understand what exactly the self is. And many of us do not understand what actually the self is. And often we talk about self, often we discuss about the self, but analyzing self is very important, which has been properly analyzed. This concept of Bhima Bhoi's self has been analyzed by Professor D.M. Praharaj very aptly and perfectly in the article. And the Sunya, void, which is again another difficult concept to understand. And sometimes I also fail to understand what Sunya is. But here in this article, Professor D.M. Praharaj has very clearly and simply explained what the Sunya and self is according to Bhima Bhoi. So this article is also quite good to read, and I think readers will certainly get pleasure reading this article, Professor D.M. Praharaj's article. Well, next is Professor Kharavel Mohanty. His article is also worth reading, and the title of his article is Syncretism in Mahima Dharma. And this article advocates that Mahima Dharma is a 19th century phenomenon, a new religious philosophy, an outstanding contribution to India, and it is often regarded as the latest faith for mankind. Well, when we are losing faith in mankind, when we are becoming mechanical and stereotyped, we are becoming very scientific and experimental. During this time, knowing self or understanding self is important, and keeping faith in people or humankind is also very important. So this article gives us a meaningful idea. It gives us an insight into Bhima Bhoi's idea of faith on mankind, or Bhima Bhoi's philosophy of faith on mankind. So this article is also a worth reading article. And then Dr. Priyadarshi Bahinipati, who is also another contributor to this book, his article, The Mahima Movement, describes the 19th century Odisha. He too speaks about the exploitative society or the exploitative society of Odisha. And again, he states about the concerns of Bhima Bhoi about the exploitation which was very rampant during those days. And we know how the subalterns were treated then. We know how the weaker section of people or the neglected people were treated then. In fact, in his article, Priyadarshi Bahinipati has attempted to display the concerns of Bhima Bhoi in his article. Professor K.C. Pradhan and Anjali Mahapatra in their articles elaborately tells us about Mahima cult and the then Odisha. In fact, these two contributors have also stated very clearly about the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi, about different concepts of Bhima Bhoi, and they have also stated very clearly about the ideals of Mahima Dharma. And the final contributor of this book is none other than the editor himself, and he is Professor Harischandra Sahoo. He too, in his article, The Concept of Shunya Purusa in Mahima Cult, emphasizes on the nature of reality in Mahima Cult. Indeed, it would be a sacrilege if I do not extend my gratitude to the editor and the contributor himself, Professor Harischandra Sahoo, and it will be a sacrilege if I do not extend my gratitude to the publisher, I mean KISS Team to be University, for bringing out such invaluable book for the readers. Thanks a lot to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to review the book and to speak something on the philosophy of Bhima Bhoi and Mahima Dharma. And I request the viewers will take interest buying a copy of this book from the market and go through this, and if at all the viewers read the articles and get a little benefit, then bringing out this book will be meaningful, and conducting such programs will absolutely be meaningful. With these words, once again, I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to review the book and to speak a few words to my viewers. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all who are watching the video, and thanks to Professor Harischandra Sahu and the narrator Dr. Chittaranjan Bhoi for participating in the event, and we are thankful to all of you. Thanks.